My name is Elizabeth Beggins. For those I've not had the chance to connect with in the past, I'm the Agriculture Outreach Specialist for the Million Acre Challenge. The Million Acre Challenge is a collaborative project focused on soil health and regenerative ag, and it's supported by American Farmland Trust, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and Future Harvest, in addition to a wide array of ag partners across the region. Our goal of 1 million acres of agricultural land and regenerative practices by 2030 is one we really hope you will help us with in whatever ways are accessible to you. I want to be sure and mention that my colleague Amanda Cather is with us today. She comes to us from AFT, American Farmland Trust, and I'm with Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Lisa Garfield, who's with Future Harvest, is out soil sampling right now, so she won't be joining us today. Okay, we usually run a kind of an official poll, but today we're making it a little less official. What we ask is that you, those of you who have access to the chat, take just a moment to kind of introduce yourselves and let us know who you are in terms of your role here today. So are you a farmer? Do you want to become a farmer? Are you an ag service provider, a researcher? Maybe you're an ag retailer. Maybe there's some other definition you'd rather wear today, and you can have more than one of those. And then we're always interested in knowing what soil health opportunities you're interested in learning more about. So if you can want to put those two things in chat if you're able. Also want to remind folks that you're welcome to use the chat at any time to ask questions or for clarification of anything. And to keep yourselves muted unless you're asking a specific question. We will have time at the end for some back and forth. So looking forward to that. I want to mention just a little bit, sort of top tier, the work of the Million Acre Challenge, which is captured on this slide. I mentioned that our colleague Lisa Garfield is out soil sampling, and that relates to the soil testing and benchmarking that we do through PASA Sustainable Ag and Future Harvest, who are partnering on the PASA Soil Health Benchmark Study, which is a long-term soil health study. We also have farmer networks, which are designed to put producers in community with one another. And mainly we want to sort of leave folks with the idea that we are a farmer-focused initiative, seeing farmers as experts and really relying on that expertise to help us help them. American Farmland Trust is also putting together some economic case studies, which are going to be exciting to see as those come forth. And a little bit later, I think the next slide, I'm going to be able to show you some opportunities for practice implementation and technical assistance funding. So one of the ways you can continue to connect with the Million Acre Challenge is through the various resources that we offer. We do these lunch and learns once a month. They're always free and they're always on the second Wednesday of the month. We offer a pretty comprehensive newsletter that also comes out once a month, usually at the beginning of the month. And you'll be receiving those having signed up for today's event. You're certainly welcome to opt out, but they do include a lot of really relevant soil health and regional information. Our social media is another option. And as I said at the very beginning, our recordings of these events show up on our YouTube channel. So that's another good place to find useful resources. The QR code there takes you to our website. The Million Acre Challenge is also offering right now an RCPP, which stands for Regional Conservation Partnership Program. It's something we have been given the opportunity to make available to producers through NRCS. It provides practice implementation funding for soil health and climate smart practices for farmers in Maryland, a wide variety of practices that maybe are different than some of the ways you may have traditionally been looking for funding, and at 100% cost share of whatever the NRCS base rate is. So those are nice things to consider. And then the PASA Climate Smart Farming and Marketing Program is another opportunity for farmers who are outside of Maryland also with a wide variety of practices that are being funded, and the QR codes for those are both there. We really want to make sure that you're getting in touch with resources that aren't just verbal and technical support, but also the funding we know farmers need. Getting there. So the meat of the matter, the reason we're here today really is to get to explore some things with Gale Livingstone. She is the owner operator of Deep Roots Farm in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, where she grows vegetables, herbs, fruit, flowers, and raises chickens on 53 acres. Until she was 7 years old, farmer Gale lived in Guyana, and then she moved to Brooklyn. She spent some time there. Eventually, she studied finance and accounting at the University of Maryland and found her way into a community garden plot that then led her to become a student of organic farming and really teaching herself how to pursue a life as a farmer. Deep Roots Farm is now on the cusp of its 12th year, and the farm's products are available through farmers markets, home delivery, a CSA cooperative program fulfilled by Deep Roots, and a curated selection of farmers in Prince George's County. And Gale, I know you have really big plans for the future. We're so glad you're here to talk about sort of where you've been and where you're going. Thank you for spending some time with us today. And at this point, I get to stop talking and let you do some of that.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to see everyone joining today. Thank you all for sharing some of your time with us today. Just want to give everyone a little background on the pictures that are up right now. What you're looking at is our production fields when I first purchased this farm back in 2020. It was just an open field that was being utilized for harvesting hay. The previous owners had a cousin that lives down the street, and he would come down, mow it, roll it, did nothing else really, didn't fertilize, didn't really spray anything. The property had pretty much been sitting for about 40 years. And so I was pretty much starting with a clean slate, so we could jump right into organic production. Still haven't completed our paperwork for the certification, but at least I knew our soil was fairly clean from any contaminants. Next slide, please, Elizabeth. On my left, and probably on your left, those are our two of our teammates, Moon and Star. They are doing guardian livestock dogs is what they are. Great Pyrenees, and so they help to protect our flocks. We have about 500 laying hens, give or take. Some we've lost this year, and their role is to protect those birds from the predators that live in the woods here. The picture on the right is another old tobacco barn that's here on the property that we are planning to deconstruct and erect a new education center in that spot. So that's a plan that we're working on funding at this time for.
So Gale, I know, and people may be inferring, if you took over an old tobacco farm, tell us about the state of your soil when you found the property. Actually, and maybe we back up just a tiny bit. Like, I know you went through an evolution of finding this property, so you might want to share a little bit about that too.
Yes. So finding the property wasn't that much of a challenge. Once I found it, the challenge was getting the financing and getting all of that worked out with the USDA. That took about 9 months. That process was dragged out because of some of the requirements that was put in place by the previous federal administration. And so that it was a little bit discouraging halfway through the process, because there were times when I felt like it was not going to happen. because it was taking so long. I mean, literally it did take 9 months before we closed on this space. Then when we finally got access to the property and we took our soil samples, I shared those samples with a consultant. And their response to me when they saw the results were, "Oh, don't buy that. Don't buy that. You don't want that headache." The soil was extremely depleted when we first got here. Organic matter under 1%. It just really did not look very promising. But of course, I love a challenge and moved ahead anyway and purchased the property and proceeded, as you can see on the far right here, we started to cultivate. We turned the soil over. We cut, we mowed what was there. Then we turned everything over and we got it limed and we started to add our amendments. Now, to amend our soil, I used to be a fan of mushroom compost. So we ordered a tractor trailer load of that. And as we shaped our beds, we added about 3 to 4 buckets of mushroom compost to each of our 100-foot beds. We also added peat moss to each of our beds. And that was that initial year when we set everything up to start that first year of planting on this field. And this picture you're looking at now is what the field looked like then and looked like now. Some other amendments and inputs that we tend to use, we use a lot of hydrated chicken manure. We use alfalfa meal. We use a lot of mineral inputs as well, because in working to restore the soil and improve it, you know, those things that have been depleted from the tobacco production, even though the land was sitting for over 40 years, the soil was pretty depleted. So we use azomite, we use a lot of rock dust, and we just keep adding each year. And over the last 2 years, we've definitely seen an increase in our organic matter. So we're up to about 2.5% in organic matter now. And we're able to grow a lot more each year. And we're continuing to, I no longer add mushroom compost. We're using some other compost. And we are starting to just see the return on our investment. Crops are healthier. We're able to produce a lot more and our yields are higher as well. So,
Do you want to talk a little bit about how you're handling cover cropping?
Yes. So the other thing that we're doing is the cover cropping. So each year we've been doing a winter cover crop. The second year we did a little bit more than the winter cover crop. We did, as we had beds that were empty, we would get a quick either a buckwheat in there and just turn that in. So our cover crop usually tends to be a multi-species cover crop program that we do. So this winter, for example, we're doing Austrian peas, winter wheat, and clover. Last year we did vetch, rye, and clover as well. And so I try to make sure that we're doing a multi-species because, you know, we want the diversity in the soil, and we know that, you know, root systems can penetrate at different levels, and that helps to open up and aerate our soil at the same time. When the spring rolls around, we tend to take a flail mower to mow everything back, and we start with our tarping the areas to help the soil, the organic matter from the cover crop to decompose before we begin planting. We are currently in the process of trying to reduce our tillage. We do currently till once a season just to get the soil going. But hopefully in a couple of years, I'm very optimistic and believing that we won't need to till anymore.
So I'm going to take you back just a little bit, back into sort of an infrastructure set of pictures. We saw the beautiful tobacco barn for which you have plans to make an education center, but stepping into 53 acres, brand spanking new, you probably had a fair amount to deal with.
We did actually, because there really was nothing here. I mean, there were 2 old tobacco barns and an old tobacco stripping house, and everything was in not occupiable condition. So the green barn that you're looking at, there was an old tobacco barn in that spot when we got here. but it had collapsed. So we demolished it, removed the debris, and had this new building erected by a contractor. And this is where we do all of our washing and packing and have our cold storage. And upstairs we have office space and a lunch area for the employees. And that's Moon again, sitting watch in the front of the building. And on the right, the field that you're looking at on the right is in the back of the property, which we're fencing that in next week, is where we're converting that into a livestock field. So it's about 6.5 acres back there. And so we've been pushing back the tree line and clearing the area a little bit to reclaim some of the pasture land that had grown up over the years. But what you're looking at is our egg mobile. The larger unit is the egg, what we call our egg mobile, where our layers tend to do their work. And the smaller units we call chicken tractors. So when we do our meat birds at 4 weeks, we put them out on pasture and we put them in these units and we move them daily. So they're on grass for about 3 weeks before we process them. So that's what's going on there. And then on the left, production in our first field. Those are eggplants we're looking at, and we used a straw to mulch, and our walkways we actually cover with landscape fabric. We also use landscape fabric, as you see on the right, for planting some of our lettuce and other crops. So it's just a way to tend to, minimize the weeding, which, as most folks know on a farm, you really can't get away from the weeds, but you just try to do what you can to minimize the weeds.
Mm-hmm. And maybe this will come up intermittently, Gale, but let's maybe mention some of your key crops, things that you're growing.
Yes. So we tend to do a lot of lettuce, onions, a lot of Asian greens. We do tomatoes, peppers, eggplants. We even do some ethnic crops. So I'd like to do the long beans, bitter melon. We do okra, lots of okra here as well. But it's a mix of things. We try to do a vast variety for the CSA and for market. So we have the 2 farmers market that we go into in DC. But we also have a farm stand that we do on Wednesdays. The long-term goal is to have a on-farm farm stand that would be a self-service area that folks can come, get online, order their items, and we'll harvest to order and have them just come pick it up, be self-serve.
So yeah. sort of a review. We heard you mention in the beginning some of the amendments that you're using. I know you're doing soil testing to try to sort of figure out, what needs go where. Kind of being very specific and thoughtful about that. You've also mentioned, building organic matter through cover cropping. All of this is part of your big program. And I remember reading, I can't quote you, maybe you can quote yourself, something that you said about the value of soil health, where that sits in your head.
The thing about soil health and that folks don't realize is how important having organic matter and having a healthy soil is. I mean, to not just the taste and texture of the vegetables, but having nutrient dense vegetables, right? There are so many things that we eat and we assume that it's nutritious just because it's a vegetable, but I can taste the difference in my lettuce versus the lettuce I get from a supermarket. Or, I go to a restaurant and I eat lettuce and I'm like, oh, this doesn't even taste like lettuce. It doesn't have any flavor to it. And to me, it's each year as I've been here, I've had CSA members say to me, oh, the kale tastes so much better this year because their taste buds are becoming more in tune with the taste and the flavors and the health benefits that they're getting from the vegetables that we're delivering to them. So year over year, as the soil improves, I've also noticed a reduction in our need for irrigating. You know, the more organic matter you have in the soil, you know, the more moisture is there. It retains that moisture for the plants to absorb as needed. And especially in the summer months when you have, you know, extensive periods of dry weather. I mean, we're fortunate to have a brand new well here, but even with that, you know, we don't have lines going all the way to the back. We're just running a hose right on top of the ground to the back of our property. So it's really been an experience to me seeing year over year the improvements, being able to see how our soil is changing in texture and color and just the life that's in the soil, you know, the amount of life that I'm seeing in there, and also the environment that it's helping to foster, not having to worry about spraying. For example, like this year, we didn't do any type of spraying in any of our fields. We planted a lot more flowers, and we introduced a couple of different beneficial insects into the environment. But even with that, it was just what a difference it made from last year to this year to see, wow, you know, the tomatoes were so much bigger. We were able to get so much more yields out of our tunnels this year. And again, I give credit completely to all of the work we did with the cover crop in those tunnels over the winter, and the soil. The soil has just, I mean, it went from being all sand that would just break to dust in my hand to now I can actually squeeze it. It's getting to that almost spongy consistency that you're looking for.
Where do these guys and girls fit in?
These guys and girls has touched just about every acre of production on this farm. So when we first got here, we just moved them around from each area and let them scratch and eat and poop and help to fertilize and turn the soil over. So every field that we have here, these girls have worked initially before we went in and turned it over ourselves. So, you know, like I say, that chicken manure, there's something to it.
Well, there is. And I think a word that we haven't used a whole lot in this context is, you know, you've talked about product diversity in terms of the vegetables you're offering, in terms of the poultry products that you're offering, but we haven't talked as much about soil diversity. And I think that's really what you're getting at here.
Yes. And on our in our fields, we don't have one just vast open area on our property. We've got 4 different fields, and in each of those fields, the soil is different. And so that was part of the challenge initially, is, you know, trying to figure out how to get each field to a certain level of organic matter, getting our NP and Ks up, just getting your basic elements in at a level where you can produce viable vegetables. And so I did work with folks at the Extension Center on our nutrient management plan that first year. So that was a help, because they are able, I mean, they're a lot more experienced than I am from the science standpoint to be able to analyze and help give us information on quantities of each of the inputs that we should add based on the results of our soil tests for each different area. Now, when I first got here, we were doing a soil test for every field block. So we broke our fields into smaller sections. And so I was doing probably like, I think that first year we did like 16 soil tests, 16 samples, and just from there just kind of worked. And now everything is kind of condensing. So this year we're only doing 4. So 1 per field.
That's great. Because you're doing things like this lunch and learn and all the other ways that you intersect with community, I think it's a good reminder that when we talk about health and regeneration, this is part of it. It's being able to also draw in information from people in your network and give back to people in your network. And I know you have a goal to do that and already are.
Yes. So if anyone has any questions, they're welcome to jump in. Here's
a Gale with a cabbage for a head. It's I think, slightly larger than your head.
Yeah.
Just beautiful. Really just
Cabbage was very happy, and is on the left you see the bok choy. They're just one of our stellar crops here.
so real quick before we jump into questions, let's talk about where you're going, and we'll wrap up there, and then we'll open the floor to just some conversation.
Okay. So the goal is, to, like I said, to get to a point where we're not tilling at all. Not to say that we're not going to disturb the soil, because soil disturbance is part of production. But my goal is hoping that we get to an organic matter of about 5%, and inputs would then be minimal. We're trying to build our own composting facility here on the property. That way we're not bringing in our amendments, and compost will be made of all of our residue and food scraps, and including some of the chicken manure as well. But the goal is to just have everything at a point where we're farming, and farming from a market garden standpoint would really mean planting, harvesting, and seeding. We shouldn't be doing a whole lot more. There shouldn't be a need for a whole lot of weeding and a whole lot of any other soil disturbance other than putting plants in and taking them out. And the backfield, again, we're getting that fenced in because we are looking to expand our livestock operation. So right now we're only doing the chickens, but we're hoping to add goats and sheep and a few heads of cattle. We do have 30 acres of woods on this property, so we're also going to be adding some pigs that we would run in woods, so that our CSA members can get a whole lot more from our farm other than just their vegetables. So.
Yeah, we've got not enough time, but about a minute to just sort of try to hold the funding question. I know you've worked with a lot of different opportunities for trying to enhance the funding for the farm. What would you like to offer folks about that?
I'll say, work with the USDA. I mean, work with Farm Service and work with NRCS. I have utilized a lot of those programs, and you do have to be patient. I'll say that. The paperwork can be overwhelming and intimidating, but it worked out. I mean, I was able to pretty much borrow every penny I needed to purchase this property and set up the infrastructure. Unfortunately for me, the pandemic happened, so there went all of my cost projections out of the window. But even with that, I mean, as time goes on, there are additional funding opportunities that are coming up, and you just have to take it in small chunks and utilize those sources to help you get where you need to go.
I think that's great advice. And I'll just mention again that in the Million Acre Challenge newsletter, we do always have a section for funding. And some of it is maybe not going to relate to every production system, but we do try to capture what's happening in the landscape there. If you know of things that are out there and you want to send those to us for inclusion, don't hesitate to do that. I'm going to take us to the sort of conclusion of our formal part of our program, but folks who've done these before know that we always ask our speakers if they can hang out for another 10 or 15 minutes after, so that we can get this dialogue going that we sort of don't have time for in the first 30 minutes. So Gale's going to be with us until 12:45. Those of you who need to hop off, I'm really grateful you were here, and you can look for the recording on our YouTube channel, and it'll show up in the newsletter. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and give folks the chance to come on screen themselves, and we'll see what's been happening in the chat, or what's been on your mind that you'd like to ask.
Okay, so someone was asking about if I had a team that previously worked with me, or did you build? So no, I did not have a team. I actually had to hire folks, and that has also been one of the challenges with doing this work. Finding a consistent workforce has been very challenging. So right now I have one part-timer, two part-time people right now here in the farm, but next season I am importing for resources from Mexico via the visa program.
Other questions? And you guys are welcome to come on camera if you want to. I'm not certainly gonna require that, but it does give folks a chance to feel like we're kind of in the same space in a weird way.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yes, I am Copeland Vidal. I'm a graduate student at Arizona State University. I'm
Hi,
presently studying sustainable food systems. So I've been in agriculture for many, many years, doing a lot of stuff, and I'm also a master gardener intern in Baltimore City. My question is that how can I get to visit your farm? I'm all the way in the city.
In Baltimore?
Yes.
Oh, that's not that far. So if you follow us on Instagram, we do have volunteer opportunities that we'll post from time to time. And so that would be, I think, the best way for you to get, be able to get some advance notice for when we're having those events. Come on down. And
Okay.
usually during the season, it would be like a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, Saturday would work fine.
Okay. Look forward to seeing you here.
All righty. Thanks.
Welcome. Right.
Hey, this is Kimani.
Hi, Kimani.
Yeah, I'm just so proud of you. I just want to say, Farmer Gale, you like the best, and I'm so proud of you. And I can't wait to work with you this summer, with this kids programming, and keep doing your thing. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Just jump on real quick. I wanted to come on and support you, because you've been just the gem.
Thank you, babe.
Totally get behind that. Who's got another question? Renee, I saw you come on camera, but that may just be because you felt like coming on camera.
I don't have a question. I have met Farmer Gale.
Oh, hi, Renee.
And there is something about accepting challenges. And the fact that she's in this space to share what those challenges are and that people can do the work if they choose, I think that's the most encouraging. I am Prince George's Baywise Master Gardener, and I'm a master composter. I'm now a USDA urban farmer. So the county kind of pimps me out to do the composting piece. I say pimp me out because anytime they have a compost session, education, or just letting people know what it is. Because the challenge is I'm not originally from here. I'm from New York, and I've been doing it for a long time. And it's all about the soil. You know, when I came here, I thought I cultivated up there that I could plant here. And it's inspiring and it's necessary to hear Farmer Gale on the scale that she is, let people know, do your soil tests, do the amendments, make sure you're not operating where, I'm just going to throw some Miracle Grow on it and it'll figure itself out. And I just wanted to say I'm proud of her. I had to come on camera and say thank you, thank you, thank you, because it's all about education. If we don't educate people that want to do this, we are doing a disservice to them.
Exactly.
So I just need to come on and say I'm proud of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I'm going to be tapping you once I get this composting built. So
it's all about the soil. For me to give my neighbor some lettuce when I first moved here, and his wife, I didn't see her or speak to her, but the wife came back, the messages came back because she shared it at the dinner table. She said, I've never had lettuce so sweet. And she said, what do you do? I said, it's all about the compost. It took 3 years in this landscape, 3 to 5 years to get it to do what I wanted to do. And not everybody has the patience for that. And I want to encourage you, even home gardeners, when I go to see people's houses for beautification, I need them to understand just putting amendments on it is not it alone. You have to do some work. You have to test the soil. So this is my area, and I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to see you doing this. So I'm going to stop talking now.
Okay. We're loving the love, Renee. Thank you. That's great. And I'll just echo, the education piece, remember Gail took it upon herself to educate herself back when she first got started. She was tapping into resources that were accessible to her at the time. YouTube's, library books, people that she knew, you know. It doesn't have to be something, we want it to feel like you can find what you need. And that's part of why we do these things. And so trying not to be isolated, trying to work within the networks that are available to you and see how you can expand those.
Yeah, and there's a lot more resources available now compared to when I first started online. You know, just all sorts of training courses now that they didn't have, a lot more books, and a lot more, I guess they call it now the YouTube universities. But there's just a lot of information, and, you know, of course it varies from region to region, but it's really helped, I think, expanding my knowledge base, being able to tap into those resources and those different individuals.
Who else has anything? It doesn't necessarily have to be a soil health question. It can